Hey, Craig, thanks for getting this in. Good write-up. Though I don't think that you told me exactly what mood you were going for, though you did get a good reason for why you went here instead of someplace outside with harder, more directional light. You know, and I'm wondering out of, because you don't say here, so I'm wondering out of the photographers that we asked you to look at this week, is there anybody in particular that you really were trying to emulate with your lighting choices? Who, why, what was it? What was the mood that you liked that they captured with similar lighting, and how did you get it into these images? I want you to cover that. In your write-up as well. So whenever I give an assignment, I usually give very specific points that I want you to cover in your write-up. So make sure that you cover those, because those are really helpful for me in giving you feedback. I don't do it just because I have to do it. I do it because it helps me give you targeted feedback. Anyways, this is a great image in regard to the candid images that we were supposed to be looking at this week. This is really fantastic, and I also appreciated that you kept the color. And this one's pretty good too. It's got a very different feel from this one. There's nothing inherently wrong with the image, but you have a lot of very interesting images going on here. I mean, you really did. And always, you know, I really want people to limit themselves to the number of finals that are requested, but if you shoot extra negatives, go ahead and throw them in the contact sheets. You know, you can, that contact sheet requirement is a minimum requirement. The final requirement is hard, but you can always give us extras. And this looks like it was a really interesting image, too. I'd love to see that one. Yeah, I mean, I think you did a great job with this. I think that was the right choice to go to the small. The lighting quality, more or less, is really actually lovely. It's got a nice ambiance to it. And I just think this is a fantastic image. I think the narrative here is wonderful. The lighting works out really well because it's soft on our soft little creature here who's calling for someone. And the angle, your camera angle, makes a lot of sense here because it's not perfectly level. You know, it's confused, kind of like she is. I mean, it's just really great. And even like this little bit of activity here coming back into the image is very interesting in this case because it's such an activated space. I think there's you with your meter. Thank you. I think this one has less strength, narratively speaking, than the other one. I think it's a nice little vignette of some quiet activity in the corner here, but you know, it doesn't have the kind of energy that a lot of your other images have. Even like this one. Even a more expressive look, you know. I don't know. That's just my take on choosing finals. I guess I was looking for something a little bit more energized, like many of your images. But this looks like you worked really hard on this. You did a good job getting out there and shooting in public without people looking at you or it feeling awkward or anything like that. This looks like a really good image too, with these people looking in that direction at who knows what. Really interesting. Great work here, Craig. Thank you very much. And I've got all the information that I need here. At no point I guess I'm not seeing any real big exposure problems, to tell you the truth. 800 ISO makes sense for this low light kind of situation. The long focal length lens makes sense because you're trying to, you know, artificially get much closer up to your subject. Sometimes you're shooting here at a really wide aperture. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's it. It was a low light situation. You've got to shoot in a high IFO. I'm just looking at these settings down here. You've got to shoot at a high ISO and a wide aperture. If you're using so you're using a 55 to 200 millimeter lens, and it's probably more in the 200 range, so you have limited aperture. So f4 is probably the widest aperture you have there, yeah. And so 1/90th of a second makes sense because these kids are so active, da-da-da-da. So yeah, that makes sense. Your exposure settings totally make sense to me here. And I don't see any big exposure problems. I just like to kind of de-engineer why people made the exposure setting choices that they did, and it makes sense to me. All right, well done. Thanks, Craig.